All right, so the purpose of this podcast is going to be somewhat philosophical, and I like to bring philosophy into business because I think that's the reason that a lot of people experience burnout. If you don't have some overarching philosophical reason of why you're doing what you're doing, then you do get burnout. And after working in this industry for 5 years now, I've noticed how many people talk about burnout. And so it's a really common problem and something that can be addressed really early in the beginning if you have a why behind it. And also, after studying a lot of successful billionaires and things like that, I've noticed that they always have a philosophy attached to whatever they're doing. For example, like Elon Musk, he wants to preserve human consciousness so that the human race doesn't go extinct. And that's why a lot of people get behind him. So it makes you a natural leader if you have a vision and a philosophy behind why you're doing what you're doing. Nobody wants to follow an empty shell of a person. So that will pull into later on in your business when you do start becoming more of a team leader and things like that, somebody that collaborates people together. So what I really wanted to do with this is bring on people such as yourself, Kevin, that have experiences, and that they can bring in their experiences into a philosophy. For example, like there's a lot of podcasts that show how-to things, and how-tos are never attached to a philosophy. So when you attach experience to something, it can become philosophical because you can see the reasons why somebody's acting the way that they're doing. And so I wanted to make this really an experiential green industry podcast, because then I can understand your thought process behind why you're doing what you're doing along your journey. And I think a lot of people miss that with, for example, the New Testament. I think it's a Western way of thinking. A lot of people will take the writings of Paul and think it's like an instruction manual, when really he's bringing in a lot of wisdom from the Old Testament and saying, this is the experiences of the human race, and this is what's actually bringing it all. This is how you think through these scenarios rather than do this, if that makes sense. So
I think the simple way is that you want me and other guests to explain is read between the lines. We want to talk between the lines.
Yeah, I don't want you to tell everybody a black and white response on things. I want to understand your thought process. And that's why I really like listening to long form podcasts, is because you get that out of people. And so it's about bringing on people that have a lot of unique experiences to bring to the table so that we can start putting together a structure and how we should be thinking as a business owner. Steve Jobs said something really interesting in one of his biographies, and it was that the Western world has kind of lost their intuition and that we think very black and white. Whereas when he traveled abroad and went to the Eastern side, he was noticing that cultures think very intuitively. And that, a lot of times that's because the people over there have been brought alongside the culture and the culture's experiences, just the way they learn and everything. And so that's what I really wanted to bring out this podcast, is bringing the experience side so that we as business owners can think on our own. Because if you're an entrepreneur, get used to not knowing what to do and learning how to think through scenarios, because you don't want to be somebody that's always asking what to do. And so for my audience, who's a lot of people starting businesses that are younger in business, I think it's an important mindset to get into. So Kevin, tell me, your journey. What got you into the green industry? I think you said you were 14 when you started. So
correct. And I think I want to go back to what the quote from Steve Jobs is. If we start talking about other countries and the American rat race that we are in, I think that we have been bred, I'm much older than you and probably a lot of your listeners, so I have a little bit more of it than the newer age and modern kids are having now. But it really was providing for family back when I became a parent and we were married, that the only real way to do it was brick and mortar. It was going to punch a clock, and my grandfather, who came over from Ireland, went right to the factories because that was what was available in this free market industry that's out there. And in other countries, mentally, they think of family first in a different way, and that's by time. And I think we've talked about this in the past, and I think we'll get to it today, is that the part of owning a business is buying time back.
Yes.
It's not the cash in your pockets. And I think you need to have what's in your mind. What is the value for you? Do you want to have a bank load of money, which will make things easier in certain ways, but there's things that you can't replace of time. Going to, if you have kids, every kid's sporting event, not missing this, being home for dinner, sitting at the table with your kids for dinner, and not in that rat race. And now I started at 14 for that reason of needing to provide. Broken family divorced early. I was with my mom. We didn't have a lot of money, so I was providing for that and any hobby that I had. And I had a hobby of motorcycles. So that was all self-funded if I wanted to. So I started working for the neighborhood landscaper. So that need of providing money into a bank account to live and provide never left me. And I was also born with another disease. I was born Irish, which we just do nothing but work.
I'm Welch, so we can have a fight out back after this.
And what you're bringing to light, and hopefully I can help some of the younger generation to understand that doesn't have to be anymore. You can still provide very well for yourself and your family by, one, using your brain, helping other people, networking, and not be the one person doing all the work all the time. And that's what I'm guilty of. If I don't go to work, the services are not completed and money doesn't come into the bank. So learning and growing how to do that, I think, is very valuable in the new age, such as these podcasts where that education wasn't available for me when I was going through this end.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think we'll get into that deeper as we go along, but I think that's really, where we want to go today.
Even as entrepreneurs, you think of buying your time back, but a lot of times it just is spent on, let's provide value. You're working on the value side of the equation rather than just, I'm working in the field all the time. And really the equation starts to become, who can I collaborate with? Because collaboration is where a lot of the value is going to come from. So if you're doing everything yourself a lot of times, just depending on, there's nothing wrong with doing the solo route if that's the mindset that you're in. But if you're wanting to grow a big company, a lot of times you're just going to have to get used to the collaborative side, because that's where a lot of the value side can come from too. I talk about this all the time, but if you're out in the woods by yourself, do you think you'd fare better with one person or with another person there with you? And that's where the extra resources can come from. And so just getting into that mindset when you're building a team. So you're really interested in turf nutrition. What got you interested on the nutritional side?
So it all spun back to when and we'll call it what it was, had somewhat of a midlife crisis in a good way. And it was all health and fitness for a body for a couple of reasons. I always thought that I was healthy until my wife started working out in a group, and I went to one of the sessions one day and realized I wasn't as healthy as I thought I was because I worked outside in the field every day. Oh, look at me. And along that journey, I got into health and nutrition of the body, a certificate in nutrition, did a bunch of nutritional coaching, was fortunate enough to have ownership in a CrossFit gym, and was able to coach hundreds of people in their fitness journey. And in the studies of the nutritional part of it, but still being in the green space, because the CrossFit deal was just a part-time gig. It wasn't a full-time job. The class sizes and times were very limited, early morning, late evening, so it worked great with a regular business schedule. I started to see the direct correlation between human health and our plant health. It's very, very similar, and understanding that what we put into our bodies is what is the result going to be of the output, and the same with our soils. I started to get more into the sustainable side of healthcare. Nutrition for turf, because not so much that there is the push of the green market, but just because it's just better to do for our environment and our kids that are playing on the turf, and the results are actually better. When you train yourself in flexibility, strength, proper nutrition, you're going to ward off many different illnesses and diseases and injuries because you're prepared. Well, if we do the same for the lawn, those issues are going to be far less than people that are out with let's say a heavy synthetic blend fertilizer and using a lot of the control products that kind of treat the problem but not the symptom. And going back to that symptom is the same as our health system that we have right now. So I kind of brought those together.
Now, what do you think the key is being able to learn all this stuff? Because one thing I find interesting about you is you're able to bring a complex topic such as turf nutrition to the human body and bring it down to very basic elements. You say all the time that it's very easy. This stuff is not that complex, but you have to learn it. Like, for example, school will teach you to memorize these certain facts about nutrition and the human body, and you start learning everything individual. It's kind of brought down to an individual level and not at a collaborative. The body's one system, the environment's kind of one system, like that sort of thing. So what enabled you to be able to learn this stuff? Because you probably had to get out of the memorization type of thing, and you had to learn about how this stuff actually works together and flows together. So what do you think the key to that is?
So I think you nailed it. The memorization in school, especially when I went to school, was probably a little bit more than it is now. And creativity was not a high point in school. They never taught you really to be creative in a topic. So I think, one, being in the green industry at a young age and needing to provide, I needed to know more to work and do more jobs, but then understood that I was really good at selling. So the psychology part of understanding people and being creative in a situation, in a conversation to help them solve their problems. And then that creativity just got me further into wanting to learn more about the plant nutrition, but then the health nutrition and how they came together. So I think it's increasing your creativity, allowing yourself to think outside the box. Don't, and I hate to say this, but don't take everything you hear as gospel.
Yes.
Contest it. Shoot some holes in it. Let's see who is true. Because unfortunately on social media, you see so much these people throwing answers out there and you see all their followers and likes and you think that's gospel. And some of them have no experience at all and they're just in that field. And it doesn't have to be green industry. So I like the point of doing the research, the backup, and kind of just seeing, hey, will this work? A little test over here and constantly, you know, in my area, I'm from Northern Connecticut, the type of nutrition that I want to provide for my clients in their turf isn't really readily available. So I had to go somewhere outside of my area, but still in my climate structure that they're doing that because of a couple different reasons. One, maybe there's more golf courses, which there were, stricter state laws, and people were or other products were available in that area because of those needs, and brought those back into my area. And doing sustainable healthcare, nutrition, which we need both of them. It is just a niche market in my area, and people are just running to it, which is my next problem.
So you would say kind of your interest and the creativity behind it is what helped you learn it a lot faster. Because I'm very interested in today's day and age in how to learn faster. And that's what I find interesting, very interesting about you, is how you can take these complex issues and simplify them. Because I think everybody wants to learn how to learn faster, because that's how you can get a leg up on life in general. It's just, it's very difficult to learn the amount of information you need in order to compete at the entrepreneurial level, it seems, a lot of times. So I think people are interested in learning how to learn faster, and that's kind of where I was going with this.
And I think you have to find something that you're passionate about, because it's hard to sell or provide a service that is just providing you a paycheck.
Exactly.
But if it's really something that you have you're involved with, you wholeheartedly, and anything that I've ever done has always been something that I truly believe in. I haven't tried to just be a salesperson to sell something to get a commission and meet my draw. It's always been something, whether it goes back to CrossFit, whether it goes back to when I was doing landscape design and install, the hardscape stuff of it, it was all very passionate in the projects, and the results were going to be something that people are going to be satisfied with and was going to make and benefit their needs for the future.
That's good.
And lawn care, even just as simple as of mowing lawns, edging, and trimming bushes, and I don't mean any fault in the simple of that. If you listen to your clients and you take the time to find out what their pains are, what their problems are on their property, and you come back to them with a response that's going to better the property aesthetically, but also take the pains away from them, you'll have a customer for life. I mean, that's what they're looking for. Sure, they can probably go on Google and get 6 estimates via Facebook in 10 minutes. But taking the time to go out and meet with someone and person one-on-one returning calls and actually listening to them. Because most of the time when you go out on a sales job, whatever you're selling, they're going to tell you what they need.
Exactly.
Read between those lines again. It's there. The pains are there.
Don't try to sell them something that they don't need is basically what you're saying. And no, it sounds like from an early age, you really knew that you wanted to help people, which helps you identify your customer, which, you know, I think we both agree is probably the number one thing in business. And so I think that's kind of what you're getting at, is just helping people. And that will naturally make you identify the same type of customer over and over again, because you may not be wanting to serve the guy that just has the yard that's a jungle. You may actually want to just be helping them, educate them, nurture them on their grass, you know, and they want the most immaculate lawn, you know, like that sort of thing. So that's two different clientele that you're talking about there.
And I think that desire to help people. So I almost went into culinary arts. I actually was accepted to a school, and I backed out of it for the main reason: every night, every weekend, every holiday, you're going to be providing for people. But I found amazing joy in cooking food and seeing people enjoy that. Really, and even in high school, I would provide food for my friends after hockey practice, whatever, and they're like, "Oh man, this is great! This is amazing." I love doing it because I just love to see their response. And there's that dopamine of that hunt, seek, kill. The reward for me was the pleasure in seeing people eat the food. And I still do that. I love to cook. So that spurred, I think, maybe that hunt, seek, kill dopamine reaction of satisfying people, helping them feel at home or at comfort, and then their guard comes down and they become a better conversation or relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is important in any sales job. You know, if you are looking to have a degree in anything, personally, I think it would be in psychology, because psychology is going to allow you to be an amazing salesperson because you can have conversations and interact with people. But the bigger problem that I hear in a lot of the little bit of consulting and turf summits that I go to is people don't know how to manage their team. You know, when you are an entrepreneur and you're a sole entrepreneur, it's easy just to get work done because you're arguing with yourself and you're convincing yourself because you know you need to get that work done. But once you start bringing team members on, now you're taking in their relationship that they have outside of work into your home or your business, understanding what they have to go through, and you're dealing with the outfall of them having a bad day, maybe their car breaks down, maybe there's a medical issue, and you have to navigate and manage that so that your business is still successful, but you're still a human to that team member as well.
Exactly.
So I think the relationship and management of the mind is sometimes much better than actually going out with a shovel or a weed whacker.
Now, I know that you did team management at a company called Russo. Was it Russo Lawn Care?
Russo Lawn and Landscape.
So tell us about that whole journey there, because you went from, I know you were talking about culinary. Your whole middle of your life is very hazy to me. So how does Russo fit into all this?
We'll fill in the gaps for you real quick.
And tell us a little bit about Russo, what size they were,
Sure, we'll get to that. So I was in the landscaping, it wasn't mine, but it was a guy I went to school with, but I was a second half of a garden center right out of high school. Second year out of high school. So that would have been 89. We took over a garden center that had 10,000 square feet of greenhouse to grow. He had someone in college that was supposed to partner in with him. And day of graduation, the partner that was going to be in here, and we secured it a year in advance, basically came up to Mike and said, "Peace out. I'm going to grow Christmas trees up in northern New Hampshire." Mike came to me with a stack of books and said, "We have to learn how to grow plants." So that was one of the parts of my life that we went into. My wife, we got married. My wife got pregnant and had twins. They closed that down and they moved. They wanted us to go to Charlotte, North Carolina for the big boom that was happening down there. That would have been 95, 96-ish area. And it wasn't right to up a family of 2 young babies and move down to something that was unknown. We go back to that part of, I was in the era where those risks you tried not to take. You tried to have secure paycheck coming in. You had a family. You just thought differently. So I stepped away from that and helped another friend of mine from high school start a landscaping and tree business by helping him set up for home shows and doing sales, which ended up being, I did sales and designs while I stayed home with our twins for the first 2 years, dealing with the clients at night, meeting with them, doing designs during the day when I could and had time away from the kids, and did that for a couple of years, which worked great. And then my wife's company got bought out by a larger company, and she was able to come home and we just swapped roles. So we've always been home with our kids. So we've always been able to provide enough for them in whatever we were doing, but it's been the green space for me. In that time, the people that moved down to Charlotte, North Carolina, one of the brothers came back and said, "Hey, I'm starting a lawn fertilization company and a tick control company." Like, oh, interesting. So we talk, and I ended up going to work for him, and I grew that company with him, and his whole goal was to sell it to a national company. Wanted to get the number of clients up and revenue up to a certain level. I was kind of the tick division for quite a while. I still did the lawn care and knew that well, but the tick was kind of my baby. Up in Connecticut, ticks are really bad. Lyme disease is pretty serious, and it is a very profitable service. I stayed with him until the writing was on the wall that True Green was coming in, and I didn't want to work for True Green. I did some design work for Mike Russo, the owner of Russo Lawn and Landscape, and he said, "Hey, I'd love to take you on as an account manager, but I have bigger aspirations for you." Okay, great. 2 miles from the house, why not? I go and work for him. We were a $6 million company. My book of business as an account manager was just under 200 or $2 million probably. And we were a year-round company. So
And what year is this?
This would have been 2001.
Okay.
And in that time, I slowly saw that Mike is an incredible business person, but he's a horrible manager for people. And he'll admit it. And he literally brought me in and says, Kevin, I need you to do my job because what's coming out of my mouth is going to get everyone to quit or our customers to walk away. He just was fed up. And he got to the level of 30 years in business, never had a job ever in his life other than himself. Is every day I'd wake up, someone wants to steal from me, someone wants to cheat me, and someone wants to sue me. Is
that all happening kind of within his own company? Do you think it was the culture or like?
Oh, it was the culture.
And what do you think the reasoning for that is? I'm very interested in what makes a culture negative or positive. Do you think it's a reflection of the owner a lot of times, or do you think it's just too much chaos going on in the owner's life, or like what causes that?
So Mike, business wise, is brilliant and loves systems and processes. Traveled the country, going to networking groups. I was part of them. He dealt with a guy, Kevin Kehoe, that's passed away, unfortunately, that really was the business model to get his company to sell the way it was sold. And anyone listening, Kevin Kehoe also helped create Aspire, which just sold about 8-10 years ago for a ridiculous amount of money. But Mike, he had sandpaper gloves. He doesn't know how to say what's coming out of his mouth properly. And he just expected everyone to know what he knew. So he wasn't good at wide-scale training and preparing people to do their jobs. But in a one-on-one sit-down, if you wanted to sit down and say, hey, Mike, I want to go over this P&L sheet, he would teach you like a teacher. But in the larger settings, I just don't think he could comprehend that people thought at different levels than he did and didn't want people to think at different levels.
Okay.
And use their creativity to their advantage.
Yes.
And not everyone in the military. Because he studied, before this media blitz that's out here with all this information, there was books, Ray Kroc from McDonald's, systemize everything, the same thing over and over and over again.
Take the human side out of it. Yeah.
Correct. It's kind of hard to do nowadays with the force of what's going on in the world of being nice to everyone and whatever you want to call that. But he was nowhere near that. That's where he brought me in. So we met with outside training, a couple companies, to get myself, the director of operations, and the CFO basically ready to run the company. It took us about 2 years to go through the training and management processes. And how it was really supposed to happen is I was not supposed to be the general manager of the company. It was going to be the director of operations. And the director of operations, I think he saw that. He did not want that weight on his shoulders. He didn't want the responsibility to it. I'm the guy that just let's jump off this bridge. The water looks fine. And so I just said, well, someone has to make decisions, because now we have about 90 people on staff during the summertime, 300 during the winter. So decisions had to be made so that they stayed motivated to be on the team, so that there was less stress on the upper management, that we're not missing people, crews, we're not calling our customers saying, geez, Mrs. Jones, your HOA of 600 acres isn't going to get mowed today. So I took that very personally, and then Mike saw that and kind of realized that he could retract himself even more. So his vacations during the winter became longer and longer and longer. It was 5 years before it happened. Mike and his wife Molly, who was involved in the business, brought myself and Joanna into the conference room and said, he had one, I'll never forget, a manila folder, one pen, one piece of paper. They come walking in, and I think Joanna knew because she was running numbers, and I said, when's the sell date? And he looked at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, Mike, you've never put me in a closed door meeting ever. You've been able to say, and there's only 4 of us here, our team isn't here. He goes, yeah, we're looking to sell, and we actually have an offer. Great. First offer fell through. It took 3 different offers. The third one closed, but it took almost 5 years to go through that process. In the very, very beginning, I was involved in only really 3 of them, 2.5, 3 years of getting all the systems in place that need to happen to sell a business. And anyone that thinks that you can just take a business and say, yep, here it is. Here's my net revenue. Megan did a great job. Here's my cash balance sheet. Come buy me. You have assets, you have contracts, you have all these crazy things that they come through. We ended up selling to Brightview. They were the third strike that came in. They came in and did a forensic review of the company, which was off-site, after hours, at a hotel. And it was a wild process. It was really, really cool to see, to be part of, to understand on how depth and how much the numbers really mean. So very, very important to have your business set up from the very beginning of a CRM system, something that's going to hold your data and your knowledge and your financials accountable. Have QuickBooks or whichever one you're going to use, having a third party kind of oversee that so that they look through the shadows that you always look through or don't look through because you think they're what they are. And then they see that it's not a boogeyman. Okay, we're going to go here. It was wild. So Brightview is a publicly traded company. So I had to sign an NDA because it could be considered inside trading. Mm-hmm. And the four of us were the only people that knew for about a year and change for this to happen. Mm-hmm. It was pretty wild. So we're meeting at hotels at night, dinners, wink, wink, at this restaurant. They would come in and inspect and do inventory and equipment for serial numbers under the cover of darkness. It was like a secret operative. It was really cool to be part of.
That's awesome. So I really wanted to pick your brain on the team building aspect. Like how long did you do that for at Russo?
Almost 11 years. Well, between Russo and Brightview combined, we'll call it 11, almost 12 years.
Okay. So what do you think allows you to be able to manage that amount of people? Like what is the key to it?
One word: respect.
I love it.
So it was apparent of what I saw from 5,000 feet of not managing the people to when I did manage them is just respect. Mm-hmm. There was a team member, Jose. It was one of the most proudest times that I've had in that span of Russo and Brightview. Jose, just a big, he was Puerto Rican, great guy, bilingual, which was great. Had the respect of the Spanish staff, which was awesome. Hardest working guy you'd ever see. I've never seen such a big man work so hard and be able to bend over like a limber yoga player. He had the respect of people within his community, and then that community came to work for us. And then I was able to take him from a laborer, literally someone running a weed whacker, to being a crew member, to a director of teams. Basically, when I left Brightview, he was running as a production manager 18 crews, and promote him all the way up through because he had that same part. He never yelled at anyone. There was no need to raise your voice. He had the respect of his staff, which I had the respect for him, and basically the power to enable him to succeed by his creativity. No one held him back. When it was back to Russo, he was just a number in the crowd. But I saw something in Jose just by everyone coming in the morning and shaking his hands and saying hi to El Jefe, even though he wasn't a boss at the time. I said, this is the guy that I think I can learn a lot from. So I've actually learned a lot from how our Spanish workforce respected each other within themselves in the community, and how they had a pecking order of El Jefe, which one of them was Jose, another one was Filiberto, who was the senior El Jefe, but it was all in respect. So I took that into place of, if I just treat all my guys the same level as I would want to be treated.
Yes.
And it's tough again, because so that would have been, let's say, early 2000s, where management style was more direct. It wasn't very personable. It was task oriented. Get this stuff done, go home. I don't want to see you after work because you're an employee and I'm a manager or an owner. It wasn't, I was kind of in that mix of time where you started to get emotionally connected to your team, which I think was very beneficial. And it can also go a little bit too far in the other way, in that friends border. But in my time of managing them, I never once raised my voice. I never yelled at anyone. I never belittled anyone. And something that I did learn from Mike Russo, if you came to him with a problem, open ears. But just don't come to me with a problem to give him a problem. I don't want to have a bitch session. He loved, and I loved doing this. It was actually a really fun exercise, is come to me a problem and let's talk about your solutions you have for it. Let me be the judge and I will help you make a better decision. I'm here to teach you to think. And I want you to come with ammo of situations. And maybe we just have to take 2 or 3 of those situations and kind of meld them together and come up with a really great plan. Or maybe you already have it and you're just not sure that you want to, if that's the correct one, or you want to do it. And Mike did the same thing to me. I'm here to give those guys power to make decisions on their own that they feel is going to be best for the situation. Well, I tell you what, you start taking people and giving them the power to make decisions, the confidence level goes through the roof. Now they have a piece of the pie in the game. They really feel it. So that was my management style, and it really actually became really fun. That's why I started to understand it's the psychology part of it. It's not them to be afraid of you. I'm a little guy. Why would they be afraid of me? But they would be very upset with themselves if they let me down or disappointed me for some reason. And I wasn't there for that. But let's say if they damaged some siding, they felt bad about it. It wasn't like, here's a piece of siding, whatever, we'll fix it. They felt bad about it. And like, hey, this is what I did. We got to fix it. Great. Let's fix it. No one's going to get in trouble. They're called accidents, and they're called on purposes.
So I almost like to akin that to, building like Nick Saban, like what is he? He's kind of a recruiter, a talent scout. How much do you think that plays into team building? Do you think it's a lot of, like you saw talent in Jose, how much of that is it you're trying to bring out the value? Because I think there's a lot of hidden value in people. So how much are you talent scouting per se on an individual level? Like
this morning. So we stayed at a hotel. I can't remember the name of it. Nice place. There was a gentleman managing the kitchen and bringing out hotel breakfast. It's not gourmet stuff, but this guy made his job as if you were at the 5-star restaurant. And I literally went up to him. I said, you have made my experience here amazing. It's just microwave scrambled eggs and whatever it is, be that as it may. But his experience made that kitchen, everyone in there was smiling and alive. I'm sitting at the table with my wife. Before I went up to talk to him, she goes, what are you doing? I'm like, there's a great employee that someone needs to steal.
Yep.
That gentleman right there is a value to someone's company. You should be value scouting every single day. Every day. Because some of your best employees are never going to come from the trade you're in. And that's what you want. You want someone else that can come in with a different perspective of what you're doing, bring in their talents, and help them to learn your talents so that now you have a team member that has value in your company.
That's good. I really love that. I think very similarly. I'm always looking for people. I'm like, man, I wish I had. I talked to you about wanting to grow an 8-figure company. It's like I want an 8-figure company so that I can plug these people, because I see it all the time, and I'm like, there's so much innate value hidden inside of people. It's a beautiful thing.
One of the exercises we had at one of the management consultant that came in, and he didn't finish it. I finished it on my own mentally. He went around the table, and there was probably 12 of us out to dinner, and he and our wives or other significant others were with us. And he wanted to know what your goals and dreams were for the next 5 years. And as a business owner or a team manager, you want to know what the goals are of your team members so that you can help them attain those. That doesn't mean that you're going to reach in your pocket and you're going to pay for them.
Right.
But you want to give them the ability to succeed, to meet the goals that they have for themselves. Maybe it's a new car. Maybe it's a great vacation with their family. Maybe it's buy their first-time house. I've been part of many people at Russo's first-time house. We had a Spanish gentleman that came into the country and became an American citizen and got his driver's license. We had a party like there was no tomorrow. I mean, those are things that money doesn't pay for. Those are great experiences, and your team feeds off of those. So there's so many great things in the management side of it that if you stay on the positive side of management, it's so easy to get down in the weeds because Mrs. Jones called or this piece of equipment broke or whatever. Well, none of those typically are your team members' faults. And if you're bringing those, it's no different than bringing your work troubles home to your children and spouse. It really isn't. So separate those and stay positive.
What do you think the bonding agent is among all of the team members? Because we all have our individual goals at the house, right? So the company should have an overarching goal of like, we stand for this. Was it reflection of what you're talking about, respect? Do you think everybody had a mutual respect within the company? Or do you think there was a different goal of like, maybe it's the customer service, what are we trying to do for our clients? Like what is the key bonding agent that you feel was the key to your success?
That's where I think walking that fine line of being family, friend, and team member, because you can have multiple layers depending on how many people are within your company. That this gentleman or lady down here, they just want their paycheck because they have rent to, and they're going to do a great job. And then you have other people that may want to move up to another position within the company. Maybe they want to start their own company, and you can help them succeed and start a company. I think what happens there is you need to have the respect and unity for everyone's goals, and then actually have those team members get together. And we used to do cookouts, we used to do sporting events, stuff like that, where their goals kind of go out the window, but they're working together in a goal of winning the game or in White River rafting and getting around the rocks, that when they come back to work, it's just clean and green. They're like, oh, we can work together. We just got through this ball game, and now I'm a weed whacker and I blow off and I run the crew, but now we have each other's back. So I think that's super important. It's tough because everyone's goals are going to be different, but I think if you, in the common goal of just having the respect for each other and everyone helping each other get to their goals, and everyone kind of knowing, they don't need to know that Tom wants to make $500 more a month or whatever, but I need to provide for my family a little more because I want to get out of my apartment. I want to buy a house. Well, Jose is going to help Tom get to that because he's going to work just as hard because he has a goal as well.
That's good. Remember the Titans comes to mind. I don't know if you've seen that. I know you said you hadn't seen a lot of movies, but
No.
I'm going to send you home with a list.
Yeah, I do need that.
If you haven't seen Remember
Winter's
the Titans,
coming.
the audience is just gasping right now. But it's very much what you're talking about. Like it's the cohesion that made them successful and the little outings that they did throughout the town and whatnot. But just very similar to what you're talking about.
It's no different than a sporting event. If you played team sports, you know, I mean, it's going to help you in business. I'm not saying, oh my gosh, you didn't play team sports, you can't be an entrepreneur. But I think you need to take some time and study the psychology of team management and team building. And that doesn't mean going to these events and doing role playing because nobody likes to role play. But again, in this era, there's so many great podcasts, there's so many great videos out there that you can listen and take information from and help you be a better manager, because it's hard to let go and you have to have the comfortability of someone doing what you were doing at a little bit less quality than you're doing. And that you need to start at a young age in your business, because if you wait until you're too far into it, you will never let go. You won't well enough. So bring them in early so that you can help mold them into the results that you want and you expect, and it takes time off your plate and the time comes back to you.
Perfect.
You need that time.
Now, after you sold the business,
Yeah.
what did you lose a little bit of your identity? Like, because you didn't make the transition to start working with Brightview, correct?
I did.
Oh, you did.
Contractually.
Okay. So tell me how that went.
Contractually, I had to stay for a year.
Okay.
And the first year was extremely easy because the way the model structure is with Brightview, the first year on business, you're run as a test dummy. So you're learning the processes and procedures because you are reporting to the stock market. So you're a publicly traded company. So it's not just landscaping anymore. My job had nothing to do with landscaping. That was kind of hard because for me personally, it wasn't kind of hard. It was hard to go from the level of reporting that we were doing at Russo. And that level always was, let's say I was a general manager, but Mike was always the fall guy because it was his company and he would help you along the way. With Brightview, I had a great general manager, Dave, that would help me. He's still there. He is an amazing boss. And the first year, the reporting seemed very easy. I'm like, oh, I got this. Hold my beer. Second year, all safety nets are gone. So now the reporting is legit, so it becomes more finite. And welcome to COVID. So now I'm running a branch of 75 people, and we all forget about it. But COVID, when you had to work through it, was very difficult with the unknowns. So now I'm a cheerleader to having team members come in every day, convincing them that it's safe to come to work. We had sanitized trucks every night. We had trucks just for one person. I mean, Brightview gave us everything we needed. They really did an amazing job. Anything you needed to make sure that the team was safe or felt safe. We were renting trucks so everyone could drive, or they wanted to drive their own car. We were paying for their fuel to go to the job so they could work. But that was extremely stressful to go through that. And then snow season was coming aboard and trying to manage COVID, the financial end of it, the financial end of losing money during COVID in the business and reporting. And then the biggest weight for me was, even though I wasn't the owner, it was kind of, I always felt the shadow from Brightview that this was my company. Why is it doing this when I was just a general manager? So I'm just reporting on what the business came from and running it the way it was with the numbers there. But I didn't create those. The Mike was the one that maybe had some skeletons in the closet and they came out during the close process. So that part kind of got frustrating for me. And back from the company, the grass company and tick company, we had a lot of clients when Craig sold that in my area that started knocking on my door. Hey, Kevin, I know you used to do lawns. Would you mind taking a look at mine? So it literally started with 5 lawns on the side. And then it went to 10. And this happened before Brightview bought Russo. But I told Mike, I said, now that we're for sale, we don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to have a job? And he didn't know, because he didn't know if just a PE was going to buy it, a private equity firm was going to buy it, if it was going to be a tuck-in for another company. He had no idea. So he had no problems with me working on the side, doing what I thought was just going to be a side hustle, to where the point when I left Brightview, I had 89 customers. I quit my job. I gave him 6 weeks notice. I didn't quit.
This is 2001 or 2021.
No, this is 2000. This would be 2020.
Oh, okay. So this is a pretty fast. Yeah, this is right after COVID, right? So
yeah, right out of the heels of COVID. And Stacy, my wife Stacy, said, "You need to do something. You're going to die. You're going to have a heart attack." The stress was just unbelievable.
Do you think? Sorry to cut you off, but I was just really curious before we get into I wanted to get into your current company.
Sure.
But when Brightview bought you out, I have 2 questions. Did the company lose a little bit of its soul? Because I talk about I like to talk about corporations and the soullessness of them all the time, and so I'm very interested in the ones that can actually keep the culture and the soul. Because it's all about. You're all about your obligation to shareholders at that point, and it's all about profits. Everybody doesn't want to say it is, but when it's owned by shareholders, it's all about profits and what's my return in my retirement account. So did that impact your ability to, keep the soul in your employees?
Great question. And you are 1,000% correct.
And were all the employees under the same contract that you were? I'm assuming not, but did you keep most of your guys?
I think all of our guys stayed, but maybe one.
Okay.
And this is no bad L on Brightview. I would go and work for Brightview as a retired person, as an account manager. At the level that I wouldn't do it. Brightview, and why Mike chose Brightview, sure, the first one didn't work out financially. The company didn't have enough money for what he wanted. Mm-hmm. But Mike created a legacy. And we had guys that were there 18, 20 years. Mm-hmm. And he wanted them to move forward with their careers. And he literally chose Brightview as the end unit because he would be able to hand down something to them and they would be able to continue their career.
Sure, that makes sense.
They offer amazing stuff. What I did see is in my side, when you were working for an investor now it's Goldman Sachs. It's whoever's doing your reporting. Not so much the client. And being a small, large family business, we worked for the client 100%. Right. Sure, Brightview always has their client first, but really and any business is about financial. You have to make ends meet. But yes, the culture changed because the driver of it was more immediate.
Yeah.
It needed
it's all
to
about
be
the next quarter. It's all about, what's our projections for the next quarter. It's never like where we're going to be at 5 years from now. It's more about selling the short-term vision for the shareholders.
And Mike was great at that at our level. Mm-hmm. And we did all the forecasting, reporting, very, very detailed, but not at the level that a corporation has to do and by law has to report. Sure. So that took the fun out of it. That really took the fun out of managing creatively as you could, because you really had a bigger end factor that creativity must have met at the end of the month.
And I could see how finicky it would be. I've never worked in the financial reporting of a large corporation, but I've read a lot of 10Ks and they're like 125-page reports. So I don't know how much you had to do with all of the 10Ks and annual reports and everything, but it just sounds like a massive pain in the butt. So
yeah, I mean, we don't need to get into the details of the reporting.
Sure, I'm not trying to, but I understand what you're talking about.
There's a weekly financial call that you have to report that rolls up to the national call that goes into the stock market advisors and what they're going to do. And there's a lot of pressure on that call to make sure that the report, that numbers I've put in, check out, and you have nothing but accountants on that call just tearing it apart.
Right.
It's the most stressful. It was Wednesday. Everyone had Wednesday. Everyone we're texting during it. We're like, oh no, Nick, I'm sorry, your numbers.
And it's such a huge time suck too that a private company doesn't have to deal with,
But that was my job. It wasn't the management of people anymore.
Right.
Sure, I had a small team with me, but that all they had subjugated to where the production team is over there and you hire and bring in people that they're going to report to you for this meeting, but you're not there every day doing what you used to do and cheerleading and knowing how Tom's wife is and your you're in the weeds. So
Yeah.
that wasn't me.
Sure.
Just something that wasn't entertaining to me.
Okay. That makes sense.
Learned a ton.
Yeah.
I paid for my education, but it
sounds fascinating. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for a few days, but I would not want to work in it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that leads me to, I was trying to figure out why the inception of Root Development. So that is kind of your why, right? So you're moving into Root Development now. Tell us a little bit about that. I think you said you left off with 89. You had 89 accounts by the time you quit.
I left my job with 89 customers, which revenue-wise, probably $12,000 for the year. That's what I'm leaving. But my wife, she's been my biggest cheerleader. She's like, get out. You are going downhill.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty wild. It was very scary to do, but I did. And luckily, the education that I used in root density, focusing in a tight area, not that shotgun approach of, oh, there's a lead over here and there's a customer over here and driving away. I am at, I was just on it this morning, 500. Well, I have 600 and something customers right now. Not all of them are active at all times because some of them do insect control. And my main deal is just turf nutrition, which is 5 applications, 7 different products during those times. So of those, we'll call it 530 customers that I service every 6 to 7 weeks in a square mile area of 6 to 7 miles. I have a hard time getting off a street when I go. It'll take me 2 or 3 days to do a street. That works out to about 11 million square feet that I manage in turf.
And as your bookkeeper, I just want to give you a shout out. You have amazingly good numbers.
Thank you.
You don't see it very often at the solo level because there's a lot of times when you have solo guys, they don't have a lot of the experience, and so they are spreading themselves thin, staying busy, saying yes a lot, and you knew not to do that from the beginning, and so it really does show in your numbers. You do an amazing job of running your solo company, so I just want to give you a shout out.
So the next one word line, so we had respect.
Yep.
The next one, no. Very hard word.
Right.
It's hard for me to even say.
Me too.
But that's the point of those lead chasings all over the place, because we did an exercise at Russo where we had 141, I think, snow accounts that we serviced. We did $2.5 million in snow. Almost half our revenue every year was snow on a good year. And labor is very difficult in snow. Sure, you can get people to plow, you can get people in machines, but we had a lot of condominium complexes that needed to be hand shoveled. So all the walkways, all the stoops, all this have to be shoveled out. So we had close to 300 shovelers on a decent event every night. So that was a difficult thing. I showed the numbers to the team that if we fired these 11 companies, did not renew them next year, not fired them, we would lose $500,000 worth of revenue and we would profit $25,000 more. And Mike kind of shook his head, and he kind of knew it deep down, but other people are like, we can't do that because it's that because I'm busy, they think you're going to be productive.
Exactly.
And we did it that spring, and we actually profited $50,000 more than we did.
I believe it.
It was amazing. So that's hard to do when you're first starting. You realize, oh my gosh, I need that job. I need that job. And sometimes you do, and you have to think really hard, but make sure it's in your area that you're going to stay, because the lead generation that you can get within referrals itself, doing your door hangers, having a social media manager, whatever you're going to do is going to be worth so much more money investing than actually driving 35 minutes for one job that you have to go back to. Let's say you're doing weekly mowing. You have to do that every week, do that multiplication. Nobody really thinks about the time behind the wheel and what it costs you. That's where all the money goes away.
Exactly. I think the average is, you want to account typically for like 25% drive time or something like that. And the closer you can get it together, I mean, that's all profit. And the minute you delete all that stuff, for the most part, it's just all profit.
Anytime you take that truck out of park, it's taking money out of your money.
Exactly.
Every single time. You need to think that way.
And people need to realize that it's not the yard that's valuable. Nobody wants to buy your yard that you do. It's the synergies that you create and the cohesion that you put between the yards that gives it value and profit.
Because they become your biggest advertising firm out there.
Yeah.
It's all mine, thank goodness, is all from referral and leads, just from seeing me in the areas. I don't do any advertising on social media. I have a hard time posting on social media because it draws attention to me, and more, I'm at capacity. And another reason why I'm down here in Florida with Joey and Megan is to talk about what is next. Do I grow? Do I bring employees in? Do I not? Do I retard a little bit and kind of slow things down? It's hard, but it's amazing how you will get your clients to do the work for you if you are on time, answer the call, do a little bit more, and look good while you're out there. Not the cigarette out of your mouth. Bring the garbage cans up. If the newspaper's down at the end of the driveway, put it up on the front step. Those things go a long way because every house has a camera on it, and they see that. And I get emails back. One lady, did you bring my garbage cans up? I'm like, yeah. She goes, why would you do that? Thank you so much. I'm like, I'm happy to do it. She goes, I go, that makes my day because you just said something nice to me. That simple stuff like that.
Right. I love it. Now, this is my opinion on the key to saying no, but maybe you can disagree. And I'm going to tie it back into, that's why I think knowing your customer is the number one thing in business. If you don't know who you're serving, you can't say no or yes to somebody because you don't really know who you're serving. So would you agree with that statement that you kind of knew who you were serving I think innately you knew who you wanted to serve. And so that helped you with your ability to say no to a lot of, clients that you didn't really want to work with, or you didn't feel like you could help them the most, or whatever the case. Would you think there's truth to that, or
yes? I think whatever services you're providing, you need to find a reason why you're better than someone else. And it's not to rack your brain to see, geez, what can I do better? It's really to do the research on the reviews that are out there to see what everyone's failing at. So you could just say you're going to do lawn mowing. You can go out and research your competitors in that area without them even knowing on Google review and see the negative reviews and see what they're leaving out. What are they missing? And then you just make that as a focal point in your production. It perpetuates into clients all day long. It's so easy. And everyone's always looking at the good reviews and looking at how can I be better and what can I do to keep up with Tom? I'll be $2 cheaper than him. Well, no, what if you're $5 more and you tell him, I'm not going to do that. That's part of my program. Oh, really? Interesting. I always do this. I always double check my gates. They're always locked. I'm never going to let a dog out, or everything is always weed back behind the shed. When I walk a customer that has an existing company there and they want me to come in and maybe take over their lawn, we look at the front. I'm like, oh, this is great. And then when we start walking, they're like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to the back corner. I go, that's where they're going to skip. That's where they're not going to pay attention. The behind the sheds should be just as important as the front. If you're going to provide a value service to someone and your name is going to go from Tom to Mary to Joe, that's when it happens. And once you start walking people out there and they let their friends know that, yeah, Kevin took me out to the backyard and was looking for weeds or bugs along the fence line where I never even thought to look. That's the important stuff. And it doesn't have to be just in lawn care. When you're mowing lawns, go and see the detail that you'd put around a shed, because everyone's always in a race for time to get to the next job. Well, maybe if you did a little bit slower of a surface, a better job, and charged a little bit more, you wouldn't have to go to as many stops that day.
And that profit's going to allow you to hire somebody that represents your values too. If you don't have that extra profit, you can't hire the person that's going to represent you properly, and kind of eventually moving yourself out of the business too, if that's what you choose to do. You want to be able to. I think of like your employees as almost like the representatives, and so it's like
they 100%
it's super important to be able to pay that. You're not going to be able to keep representatives if they don't really.
They have to have skin in the game.
Exactly.
They have to, and I hate calling them employees. I
hate it too. Yeah.
I hate upsells. They're value-added services.
Yeah, exactly.
People say, "Oh, I'm going to upsell it." You're going to value-add service because you're looking to provide a resolution to a problem they have, not just upsell them. If you just want to upsell them, you're just Tom and Joe, that landscaping that's going to do whatever everyone else is doing for $3 less.
Right.
But if you can put yourself together a nice piece of literature, email post, or whatever that's going to go out to them on how this service that you're going to add on is going to bring value to you and your property and resolve a problem. Oh yeah. Next, when can you do it? So it's a mind shift change, and that's the psychology of sales, which I love. Finding resolutions for people's problems without them knowing they're even telling you problems.
Right.
And when you bring out that, oh, well, this is what's going on, they're like, wow, the epiphany hit. How did you know that? I'm like, you told me between the lines.
Right. So I know you told me, I don't know if you mentioned this, but your goal is to sell, eventually. What's the horizon on that? And then what's next for Kevin Salters?
Great questions. Actually, this winter, I want to be doing some research on how you would sell something as mine. I'm in a weird situation to where I'm not big enough to where I have team members where, let's say, a venture capitalist will come in and buy it because I have a manager in place and I have crew involved, and I have a building that they could rent back from me. I have clients.
Right. Which doesn't even show on the balance sheet. Like, it's just literally.
Correct. It's revenue.
You can only see it in the profit.
Correct.
Yep.
Root density is very important in any business, and I know that would be very attractive to some of the larger national brands that would just, they need to buy addresses to service and market, because they're basically a marketing company that happen to fertilize once in a while. They have many different other businesses they can cross promote to. So that is some of the research. I have a friend of mine that took a HVAC company and started buying them and brought it to $900 million and sold it. 900 million. Correct.
Wow.
That was his last target. It wasn't his company, but he ran the growth of that. And off air, I'll tell you what the beginning number was of that, and you'll fall out of your chair. But they wanted him to go into the B's, and he says, I'm done. I'm too tired. So now he's buying other types of businesses. And I'm not going to say what type they are right now, because he's really strategically building that from Boston down to Virginia. And he's going to be my resource of how to go. And he's helped me already. I did some consulting for him in him wanting to get into this space, which he finds very attractive, because our space they have very loyal customer lists that will stay with, and private equity firms like that to invest in, because the recurring revenue is there. But he was kind of taken back and nervous about the chemical side of it, not knowing enough about it.
Yeah.
He's studying, he's getting his license, his son's getting his license, so they know it better. Because this other division he's in that he's building is just going to be a quick flip for him. This is all he's done in his life. This is what he does for a living. So he's found that our green space that we're in, especially in the fertilized business, is about a 7 to 10 year window right now, where the multiplier factors are anywhere from 5 to 10x, depending on your EBITDA or cash balance
your earnings,
sheet.
your PE, basically.
Clean.
Yeah.
Basically. Yep. So I hope to have him on our podcast, and he can help people understand the process of it to get ready for it, because that's where I'm at right now. I'm not saying it's a year, 2 years, or 5 years. Unfortunately, I enjoy what I do. I love to be on the turf. It's a nemesis, unfortunately. He's really trying to get me to bring team members in, because he knows what he can help me bring this company to. I could do it with his help or without his help. It's more a mindset shift of me.
Kevin? That's my advice. Like, just do what you want to do, man.
So I want to know what the value is of where I'm at and where I could bring it to, that some type of buyout or sellout. Is that piece going to be worth it? Or do I have to take that and go into checkmate and go into bring in people and get a building and do all different things at a different location to grow and get it to the next level, so I can retire out of this? So
yeah, I don't know what to tell you there.
That's why I came down to you. I thought you were going to give me all those answers.
I mean, if it was me, I would just be trying to think through it, maybe bring in an understudy that maybe has always wanted to own a business or something like that, teach them the personal side. You're kind of bringing in the next character of the show or something, introducing them. And then somebody that would be able to eventually buy the list from you. I don't know exactly how I'd do it, but that's probably what I would do, just from looking at it. Because you can get paid two ways with your business. You have a nice salary and you have good profits on top of that. So I mean, that should be enticing to anybody that wants to get into business and just learn how to do it. It's a good starting point. So I think that would be the sell for me, is just bringing somebody that wants to learn how to do it and get into business and eventually do what your friend's doing, which is just buying and selling stuff. I wouldn't want to just jump to the top like that. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I would do the buying, selling part of it, because your second part of the question would be, what would you do after? And I am intrigued in coaching. Did it with CrossFit, which I loved and had a passion for. And I like the personal mental motivation of people. I like to be able to be part of that. So I do some consulting during the winter times. Actually, another gentleman just reached out to me yesterday about it, and I'm excited to see if I can help him get him to where he wants to go. We still have to have our consultation to see what his goals and aspirations are, but that would be something that I would love to do, is get more into the consulting. I don't have the answers for everything, but I've made an awful lot of mistakes in 34 years in this business, a lot of them, some very expensive ones along the way. And I tell people this all the time. If I had the passion to learn that I do now when I was in grade school, stand back. I would have been dangerous.
Same.
But I didn't. I had to go to work. I needed to work. Yeah. And that was my passion, that, wow, I can put my body forth in labor and get reward. This is amazing. And that dopamine came, and then I do more of that. I get more of this. Like, wow, this is neat. And then it's a drug that you get addicted to. And now
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So the helping of people, sometimes it's hard to do less and get better results. Very hard. This trip coming down here to come on your podcast, the Joey Corbally podcast, which is a really cool name, I think. It just rolls right off the tongue. It's cool.
It's funny because I hate it. Because my name, I'm just like, it just sounds like blah, 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 blah.
It's so cool. It rolls off great. But again, with you and Megan as my bookkeeper and helping me see clear numbers and really helping me to understand the numbers, because when I was at Russo, when I was at Brightview, I had a COO and I had this person, that person that brought me reports, but they were mine, but they weren't mine. Now everything that I do is mine, and you guys keep them clean, you keep them precise, nice, easy monthly meetings. But we also have these strategic talks of what you are going to do next, which is so important. I remember probably 2 years ago of a meeting you weren't even involved in yet with Megan, but I said, my goal is to get rid of this truck and replace this truck. Okay, here's the plan for that. And then it was to bring in a new piece of equipment. Okay, this year would be a good year to bring in that piece of equipment. So now as a sole entrepreneur, I have a team around me that I can bounce questions off. And I think that's invaluable.
I love that.
It's so, because I had that at a paid level, when you're by yourself, and people that are listening, if you're a one-man band and you're out there just doing your job and your best to get everything done, it was hard for me to understand that you have to pay for services that you technically aren't seeing value in, but you get a ton of value in. And that is, I remember the biting a bullet to pay for QuickBooks Online. I'm like, what's this? I had the desktop version. Nope, Megan says it's got to be online. I'm like, oh my gosh, $30 a month. And then your consulting fees, and then Sheila consulting fees, and other ones that I have. And now it's like, I take as much as you need. It's just like, I don't, it's the best money you could ever spend.
I love to pay for help.
It's hard for an entrepreneur to understand that you need to have that help. You think that you can do everything yourself, or that X amount of dollars a month is going to break you. It's not. It's going to make you more money than you know. It really, really is.
Yeah, I agree. I noticed in business, and I tied it into like being a solopreneur, and I tied it into kind of a marriage, and me by myself, I have some really good ideas, and I have some of the worst ideas you ever heard. And then Megan's my balancing act. Like, she helps me. That's a stupid idea. You don't want to do that. And so I can only go on trajectories of good ideas, essentially, because I have somebody else balancing me out. And in business, you want the same thing, except for the business can get enormous. And so you need more and more people to help you make decisions. And that's where the collaboration comes into. And so I just noticed, like, marriage is kind of the tiniest level of a community, and it's like a little mini community of two people. And then a business can be the same way, but you can extrapolate that out and make a business a community. And then everybody else is kind of pitching in, kind of like your spouse would. And it's a beautiful thing if you can do it right. But that's really what the way I see a business now is, I need some help. Help me see this or that. All my blind sides. Where do I suck at? Where do I need help at? Because I have my strengths, but I have tons of weaknesses. I need lots of help on those. So
I think just having the ability to admit that is half the battle. Because I think we all think that we're invincible. We can do pretty much everything ourselves. Yeah, we can do that. Social media. Yeah, I can put a post up. Don't look at me put a post up. Because man, it'll be so messed up. You think it's that easy, and the time it takes, and then the corrections. And no, there's people that specialize in those services that you need. And as you grow your business and tax time comes, maybe you're not running as legit as you should in your business. And now you're coming into where you have to do quarterlies. You have to you're going to go to an LLC. You're not just a DBA, or you're going to file as an S Corp. Those are all big stepping stones that I guarantee as you step, you don't know enough about them. Just going up to an S Corp quite a few years ago, Sheila Chaplin, Reliable Tax Services, I went to go do my distribution in one lump sum at the end of the year. And I sent her the email that, all proud of myself, I'm doing this. She's like, what? Wait a minute. I've already got all your stuff lined up. And I had to go back, do everything backwards. I thought I knew what I was doing. I'm like, yeah, I kind of listened to her, but she had a strategic plan of when and how. And I'm just going to hit it all. She's, no, you can't do that. I'm like, okay, thank you.
It's such a hard balance of trying to feel really, because I think confidence is a big key in business. So you have your confidence, but then you also have to realize that you can take it a little too far, and you can really, like, everybody's going to get embarrassed. Nobody knows everything. You know, there's like things that you'll do that it seems really silly to somebody else, you know, but I don't know. I've just gotten used to that at this point. It's like, I really like to increase my confidence level, but at the same time, I'm going to embarrass myself all the time with things like that you're talking about, you know? So
yeah, I think your mindset is definitely in the right aspect of bringing in other people to help you and the company grow. It's not you, but
Sure.
your vision grow, because you're going to find the reward in what they put forth, and they're going to get the reward and satisfaction of the help of the growth of this, especially in kind of a conceptual business that you had for a couple of years, and now you want to bring up to the next step and the next step. Those fun pillars, the more people you can have involved in that, the reward becomes great for them, but it becomes even better for you, because now you're seeing other people happy. That's
Exactly.
really what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Reward, whatever you want to call it, they're happy. They're energized. They're creative. They're comfortable. They're not reporting to the big man anymore. They're on their own schedule, but they realize, geez, I can still make a living doing something that I can do at my pleasure, which is very important.
Well said. Well, Kevin, tell the audience where they can find out about you if you need that. You're always talking about how you don't really want to get your name out there too much. So if you'd like to share, like, I'm sure where the audience can find you or listen to more of you.
I'm sure potential clients aren't listening to this, but they do listen to a podcast. I do have a podcast with Doug Gray. It's a turf nutrition and management podcast where it's all in the weeds of green stuff. So it's all about fertilization, early order programs, all the technical side of it. That's on every platform that's out there. I'm Root Development, and that is across everything: Facebook, Instagram, email, rootdevelopmentllc@gmail.com. If any questions, I do some coaching. I'm not a professional coach, but I think I've made enough mistakes that if I can help you not make some of them, that's the kind of reward that I like to do. I work with a lot of younger guys in their 20s that I've caught them on a couple of things and helped them to move their businesses forward.
Awesome. Anything, final things you like to say?
Respect. Don't be afraid to say no, and ask for help. There's a lot of help out there. I mean, you guys, Paul Jameson, I mean, there's so many wonderful podcasts out there that weren't available in my growth in a business, and they're all doing it for the same reason. They're all doing it because they want to help people grow. Don't be the guy that thinks or lady that knows everything. There's so many wonderful opportunities out there that people just want to help. It's a totally different community out there than what you see in your daily news and rags that are out there, that if you get into the space of entrepreneurship, there's a whole, I'll call it a cult, but that cult of positivity of wanting to see everyone aspire to what their dreams are and be successful, because it's not going to hurt them if you're successful. It's going to promote them.
Right.
That's what I would do.
I love it. Well, Kevin, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.